So you may be aware of the very surprising meeting between Mamdani and Trump earlier today. Here you have a quick look at the astrology explanation for this event. It's not a super deep dive, but I think I captured some of the most important points. If you're wondering why the meeting held earlier today between Zohran Mamdani and Trump went ever so smoothly, the answer is shown by the astrology, especially the chart-to-chart comparisons, what is called synastry, how one person's planets affect the other. And this is something that I mentioned in passing during my recent collaboration, either with Linda or with Nath. I referred to the fact that they are both air signs, and so therefore there's a point of agreement in that sense. But if you look a little more closely, you see that if you look at their charts, here's Mamdani, here's Trump, so you've got the air sign and the air sign, but then you notice more specifically Trump's sun is really close to an exact trine to Mamdani's sun, and that is a very good point of agreement. It's a palpable sense of being aligned with one another. I've seen this pattern in my astrology journey over and over and over. It's something that psychologist Carl Jung had identified in his clinical practice. He was very interested in astrology, but never became an astrologer. However, he could tell that partnerships, lovers of the same element seem to show up more frequently than you would expect in a straight up, by chance, statistical correlation. And so here you have the air signs not only agreeing, but also being in a close trine. And to add to that, you then notice that they're both Leo rising, so now they have an agreement in their personalities, which is also really helpful, and you see this again in partnerships that work. And then you have the moon, which in Mamdani's chart, it's at 18 degrees, just under 18 degrees of Aquarius. So you put it over here in Trump's chart, which first of all is his relationship sign, the 7th. But on top of that, you have a really powerful trine that is made by that moon to Trump's Jupiter. And that's another really, really good connection between two people. There's always going to be a measure of goodwill and forgiveness when you link one person's Jupiter to the other person's moon in a good angle, and the trine angle is the most natural, it's the best angle. And you can even add to that that the moon in Mamdani's chart, the Aquarius moon, aligns by element to Trump's moon, because fire and air, though not as quite as natural as if it's air and air or fire and fire, fire and air support each other. So there's a lot to work with here. However, of course, the natural response is to say, all right, what's really going on here? Because these two are in completely different political camps, and what are the odds that this is going to continue in the same way? Well, first of all, some have even said Trump will do this, and then before you get out the door, he's already doing a Truth Social tweet attacking you, or if it's not 48 hours, it's a week, or like pretty soon after complimenting you, he'll do that type of thing. However, let's assume that he doesn't. Let's assume that he lays low for now. Then in that case, you look for when is the astrology such that there might be a breakdown in their relationship. And the first level I would point to their combined chart now, the composite. There's where you put both charts together and you get where those planets are. There you see that there's some risk of the Uranus cycle becoming a problem, because Uranus, right now, it's at the very, very end of Taurus, and it's not doing too much. In fact, if anything, right now it's quite good because it's at the end of Taurus, it's trining into this part of the composite chart, which is actually good. Trine, once again, signifies agreement. So in fact, really I should add that to why this went so well based on where Uranus is. But Uranus will backtrack until in February it makes a station at 27. That does trine the Jupiter, which continues to be quite good. However, that gets pretty close to a square in this direction. So the trine is like that. That one is good in this direction. But then you have the square going from there to the Sun. Maybe because the degrees are closer to the trine will triumph, but this is a little risky when you put it in this direction. And then the other way you can assess this would be if you look at their respective charts again, and you realize that since they're both Leo rising, then Saturn will be in their 9th sign at the same time next year. And there you see that for Trump it's going to be much harder because of many things that you've heard me say in prior videos where I'm linking it to the fact that Saturn will be touring through Aries, putting pressure on Eris, Neptune, and Mercury, and eventually in 27, 28 it'll put pressure on these two here. But definitely next year those 3 planets will come under a lot of pressure, so he's not going to like it one bit. In the case of Mamdani, next year could prove to be the beginning of challenges to his work because Saturn in the middle of Aries, which is what it'll reach mid-year, July, when it makes a station, what it'll do is it'll square into this Capricorn zone with Neptune and the Black Moon. And this is Mamdani's workhouse, so then he's going to feel work pressures. And as I say, simultaneously, Trump is feeling bigger work pressures. And so then from that alone, you may start to get, the usual Trumpy way of doing things, which is when things aren't going well for him, he looks for a scapegoat. He looks to point to someone else being at fault. And since he has been trying desperately, at least until now, to link what he calls Mamdani's communist nature to the Democratic Party, which of course is totally false. But by doing that, he'll be able to distract next year. I suspect he's going to have a ton of issues to deal with. So then you kind of expect that, let's say the summer, maybe late spring, summer of 2026 will present us with the first serious breakdown. But it becomes a curious thing to see so much agreement on the basic level where you have the air, sun and moon, and the connections to each other. So we'll have to see how it develops because it could ultimately surprise us that this may not be the most challenging relationship that we see between two politicians that are at such opposite ends of the spectrum.